You're live.
Okay, welcome, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions. It is the last day in April, Thursday, April 30th. Charles made it. Wow. Oh, first May. We'll be out of here in May. It's coming up. So we have with us Katie Quinn, our legislative counsel. She quickly made up a new draft last night, which incorporates some of our discussions yesterday. So Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Sure.
Green Office of Legislative Counsel. Here is a draft. It doesn't look like an integrated draft into the language because we're still waiting to see what the other committees do before we put the pieces together. But you asked for a legislative intent section. So this is a standalone language that will be added at a later date to a strike all amendment. So it is the intent of the General Assembly that the Department of Correction shall not operate or staff a forensic facility, with the exception that employees of the Department of Corrections may provide security around the outside perimeter of a forensic facility if it is co-located on the grounds of a correctional facility. That's still an open policy question, but that is sort of some of the conversation that happened here. The feasibility plan is now broken into two subsections. So the language you looked at yesterday is subsection A. And then you added a few items to what would be coming back. So in subdivision 6, proposed staffing levels, staff qualifications, potential contracting needs, and clinical services available at a forensic facility, including competency restoration services.
Got 2 floors.
Do I?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you.
What happens when you work late into the night?
Oh, gosh.
Well, I'm asking, raise my hand with Troy. Chair.
Oh, go ahead. I wasn't paying attention.
Just a question for the committee, and I don't even know if I have strong opinions on it, but whether the staff is remote or on site, is that relevant? Because I could see a contractor being out of state and zooming in for a competency. I think that's what'll happen,
I
yeah.
think it should be on site.
Yeah.
Should be on site.
Troy's laughing because he didn't get it.
Yeah.
He missed it and you didn't.
I'm more skeptical than Troy, that's where it fits in.
Troy's more trusting.
Should definitely be on site.
Okay, added that.
Okay.
Okay. In subdivision, newly renumbered subdivision 8, the physical and staff security plan, both within and around the perimeter of the forensic facility. I'd be coming back as part of the plan. And then you have this new subsection B that at the August, November 2026 meetings of the Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee, the Secretary of Human Services or designee shall provide an interim status update on the development of the feasibility plan that's required in subsection A. And then, if you remember, we kept talking about section 4B yesterday, and we're not ready to make other changes to section 4 because we don't know what's happening in the other committees, but this felt discrete. So these are changes just to that one subsection. So as you know, House Judiciary has proposed changing Commissioner of Corrections to Secretary of Human Services, so I pulled in their change. I have a different, I tend to use the word individuals when I'm drafting instead of persons, when I'm drafting for Human Services. But the Judiciary team uses persons in Title 13. So this care of persons, it had been care of individuals, but to make it work with the rest of the bill, I changed it to persons so that it's consistent. Subdivision 1, it should be designed and operated in a manner that supports therapeutic, recovery-oriented, and trauma-informed programming in a therapeutic community residence. So that language in a therapeutic community residence will track the definition that you like, because that's means something specific. That's a specific Dale license type.
Is that what we really mean? It's in a specific day of license. So
Doesn't mean that Dale necessarily is operating the facility, but they license that facility type.
that was brought up by the Chair of Human Services. That's what therapeutic community residence means. It is licensed by Dale. And that's the question Is that what we're really looking? Or not?
Subdivision 3.
You need to.
I'm sorry. Okay. Subdivision 3, provide for the safe evaluation, treatment, and care of persons. I pulled that language in from the lead-in here. Where is it? Evaluation, treatment, and care. So that we're consistent in what is being provided. So it's to provide for the evaluation, treatment, and care of persons, including the ability to separate the population by sex or gender and to otherwise address clinical, safety, or operational needs. Prior, it had said operational considerations. I think that's it for these changes.
Sure.
Do you think the intent language is enough to get at the concerns that I brought up yesterday, where in the broader bill, when we're talking about custody of the Agency of Human Services, that we're also prohibiting the handoff to DOC? You were gonna talk
Yeah.
to Eric about that,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering if the intent language is enough to cover that.
Well, intent language is aspirational,
That's
so,
true.
yep, it's not binding, but it sort of is indicative of what the legislative intent was. So if something, you know, was to happen with the Department of Corrections, it would be clear that that wasn't your intent. And then we have the feasibility plan, which clearly says it cannot be there.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm envisioning is that in between the feasibility plan coming back and the forensic facility being up and running, there is a piece of legislation that is needed. And that piece of legislation will be more specific, likely amending some portions of this bill as to exactly what the General Assembly is deciding on.
okay.
So we get to
But do
it
we
again.
want to wait till that time?
Right, is there a way to do it proactively or not?
I mean, you could add a subsection somewhere that says then you don't need the legislative intent. You could sort of do the same thing you're doing with the legislative intent and just put it as a subsection somewhere in the bill that a forensic facility shall not be operated by the Department of Corrections.
There's some time to think about that, yeah, before, because we're gonna get the bill.
We're gonna get the bill. So we had the chairs met at noon, 4 chairs. I gave this language to the other 3 chairs. They tended to support it. So they really did, looking through it. Fine to come. I think I'm in train of thought. Oh, we're gonna get the bill probably next Tuesday. We'll actually have a bill. It's gonna be transferred to us. And we'll be working with Human Services.
I'd just like to weigh the pros and cons of how to do that, how to make that clear. I don't necessarily want it to kill the bill. But I also don't want to see this landing in the Department of Corrections.
So I'm afraid if we wait till after, it won't go.
If we wait till next year, it's too late.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But I think it needs, if that's what we're all still on the same page, that we should do it now so it's there. Because otherwise, after rules and that, it could go right under the wire.
Yeah.
That's just my humble opinion.
I think I'm with you.
Good folks.
Do you see the question then?
Question is, right now, the only thing preventing. If we put this under the custody of the Secretary of Human Services. There's nothing really preventing the Secretary of Human Services just doing a handoff to DOC. And do we want to specifically state in statute that that can't be done? But that closes the door to some degree on shared custody. Where shared custody might be necessary.
Yeah, and the issue that Karen Barber, she saw some of this, what Eric Fitzpatrick, and you worked up the draft that's in judiciary where everywhere was that Department of Corrections or Commissioner of Corrections, particularly the Commissioner of Corrections, got changed to the Secretary of the Agency of Human Services. She was saying, Secretary of the Agency of Human Services doesn't have the ability to custody of them. It's the departments, not the agency. But in some cases, there may need to be dual custody. That's what I'm wondering. You know, like DOC and Dale. Or DOC and DOH.
So you could do language that says that, none of the residents of the forensic facility shall be in the sole custody of DOC. I could add that maybe to the subsection B. And then we would get rid of the legislative intent.
I don't know, it just still feels too, I love the legislative intent and,
You do both, you do both.
I think it's still just too easy to just, for the secretary to slide it up to DOC. That's
Well,
what I'm worried about.
you're doing it, you would put that language in. That for those. The residents of the forensic facility
Mhm.
shall not be under DOC's custody.
Sole custody.
It's all custody.
That feels slippery. We also haven't talked about the dilemma with regard to the DOC currently providing supervision to folks who are not housed in a forensic facility, but are in the community, but are still waiting. Custody, competency determination. Because right now, the bill as it is leaves supervision of those folks to DOC, right? That's in the bill.
Well,
After they are leaving this,
Yeah.
yeah,
We
but I
have-
mean, the new version has the Secretary of Human Services.
Okay,
yeah.
That's the lead.
okay.
So I'm scheduled to be in another
Yeah.
committee.
Let's go through this real fast.
Well, I think we got through all the changes. So I guess my question is, what would you like me to come back with? Would you like me to put this language in on the sole custody of DOC? Do you want to wait until you get the bill from?
Why don't we wait till we get, we're supposed to get the bill next Tuesday, so
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I wanted to bring the committee up to speed on this. Seeing that the other three chairs had a copy of this, plus the representative to my committee, but I wanted to give them a heads up in terms of what we were learning. Okay,
What was their feeling?
they like the language. At that point, we quickly looked over and looked how it was okay. I mean, they felt good about it. Because everybody's kind of on the same page, but they don't want DOC to be department in charge or have custody over.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks.
Have a good afternoon.
Cousin Benny's doing a cameo visit.
He's done again. Well, Steve's got, no, it's Brian's got
that's all my garbage.
That's yours.
Want me to text them?
Yeah, they should be in the hallway. They should be very far.
Yep.
Ready.
Just debating really fast. Sorry.
We started yawning and everyone
Started what?
yawning.
It's the weather. It is the weather. Is Steve Howard out there at all?
Card room, going to grab it?
Yeah, we're ready.
It's been lots of silence.
For all the writing she did.
It was interesting to see everybody wrote like initials and this one guy wrote his whole name.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty good.
Madam Chair, I apologize for Vince making me late.
Cameo visit.
Oops, sorry.
Illustrious and Lucy.
Apologize for Vincent's behavior, anything he has done, will do, anything he has said or will say.
Steve Howard will tell you he's a great guy. If we could find any friends of his, then we could confirm that.
Friends are a lot of work. Friends are a lot of work.
Zero.
The ambulance is here.
She's a nice
The
lady.
ambulance. is
Zero.
here.
I spare my energy, I spare my energy here. Ugh.
They're trying to take us and bring it away.
They got the ambulance here.
The ambulance.
Oh, no.
Hired first.
The fire department usually
Out there?
comes when there's an ambulance.
Back up.
Okay, let's see, is about ready here?
Thank you so much.
Cindy, could you check that out? for us?
Literally get lost.
We'll find out.
Oh,
There it is. It's a-
Perfect.
Thought I heard something.
Yeah.
I think I'll get a picture of Steve testifying. I don't think he's working.
Take it out from close, Steve.
Thank you.
You want
Steve and
to
Vinny.
Come back in, talk about staffing, and we also have some questions also about staffing, a little bit of something. The piece of legislation we're working. That's 193.
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Steve Howard, I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont State Employees Association, and we represent the frontline workers in the Department of Corrections and in central office and in P&P offices across the state. I have, I think, a couple of things to say. I came a little bit prepared to talk about the forensic facility, but weave in there some of the conversation about staffing as well. And I'll be clear about VSEA's position. Little history here. Back in the day when I was sitting in one of these seats, I remember a young Connor Casey coming up to me to twist my arm to support a forensic facility. And I, of course, supported him. I did whatever Connor told me to do because I liked him and I was afraid of Annie Noonan, so I would do whatever they wanted. VSEA's position is that we support a forensic facility. We need a forensic facility in this state for two reasons. One is our frontline staff in the Vermont Psychiatric Care Hospital are not correctional officers. They're nurses, they're mental health professionals, they're med techs. They are not correctional officers. They need some level of security like what a correctional officer would provide. Our correctional officers are not nurses and they're not med techs, and they need the same kind of services that nurses provide, the medical professionals provide. And this problem, I mean, this discussion on this bill is really sort of interesting because it's 4 different committees and it's a huge issue and everybody's discussing it. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And I understand, you start in a small area, but what I hear from our correctional officers is there's a much larger issue with the incarcerated population that have developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and who have mental illness. And so I think, unfortunately, we call it deinstitutionalization, but what we really did was move them from one institution to another. Maybe one that's could have been a little bit more appropriate than where we are now. Having said that, VSEA opposes the construction or the establishment of a forensic facility in a correctional facility, and particularly at Southern State, where they are under enormous pressure. That particular facility has way too much on its plate. It has the infirmary, it has the mental health unit, it has the unit with the elderly population, and it has some of the most violent offenders in the state, combined with a massive understaffing. Now, it's interesting to me because I read with great interest in your visit to Southern State the other day. And I don't know whether this came up in the conversation with the superintendent or with the management, but while you were there, our members' breaks were curtailed. So sitting at their post for 12 hours, sometimes 16 hours, they usually get 2 to 3 breaks. They were limited in the number of breaks they could take because they didn't have enough staff. At 1300, which is, I understand the time that you left, the facility went into a partial lockdown and then a full lockdown. And that was just the first in the last few days. But my understanding is that the management may have expressed that staffing was fine at that facility. And if you look at the numbers that they present, they're not presenting false numbers. They're presenting you the picture of the entire facility. We're great staffing if you count all the admin and all the supervisors. And that's what the department does system-wide. They say, yes, system-wide, all the central office staff are added in, all the admin are added in. We're doing great. We were at 18 and now we're at 15. It's the CO1 classification you have to pay attention to. That's what's driving the 16-hour shifts, the 12-hour shifts, the mandatory overtime. That's what's driving the lockdowns, and that's what's driving things like curtailing breaks. Southern State is much better off than Northern State. Northern State has 45 people available to work. They need in security positions. They need 80. And you'll hear that everything's fine. They told the Secretary of Administration, we have 57. Because the other thing that they do is they put everybody on the schedule, whether they're available to fill a post or not. So if you're on military leave, you're on the schedule, but you may be overseas. If you're on TRD or temporary relief from duty, you're on the schedule, but you're at home. If you're on workers' comp, same thing. And that's the little trick that gets played. And I'm saying this to you, and I've said it to the Secretary of Administration, I've said it to the commissioners. This leaves our members in a very precarious position. So in Northern State, not only do we have people working 16-hour shift after 16-hour shift, the caseworkers who prepare people for reentry have to give up one of their days to work a security position. They're now called in on Saturdays to work an 8-hour shift. They get 1 day off a week. 1 day off a week. They are livid. So they're really disheartened whenever they hear that management says, good, it's fine, we're all under control. Now, I will be clear that Commissioner Murad understands that Newport is not under control. I mean, I've talked to him about it. He understands it. He's not trying to pretend that it's not under control. And I'm eagerly awaiting the deployment of more help up there, as I am in Southern State and throughout the system. Marble Valley, we're working under some tough conditions in Marble Valley. They have had an indirect unit with indirect supervision that has now been Bravo unit that has now been changed back to direct supervision. Our members who during that period were not on standby, were not being called in, asked to be put on standby, asked to be held over, and asked to be called in because of the dangerous nature of that unit. Basically, what they told us is the gangs have taken over that unit. The incarcerated aren't safe, and our 15-minute checks make us vulnerable, and we rather be there to see what's happening and to watch what's happening in the cells, because even though it looks like a solution to the staffing problem, we would like to go home alive when we do get to go home. So the commissioner has been very responsive to our members there. He met with our members and went down for that meeting, and that's changing. There are management problems there, but he's working on those. So those are just 3 examples of the women's facility. You've heard about the growth in the population there. Staffing hasn't gotten much better. There's a lot of positive reviews of the new superintendent. It's making some changes there that members have expressed to me that they found favorable. Increased accountability for the incarcerated being one of the most important, but they're still also in a staffing crisis. So I'm mixing this all in, but we think the Department of Corrections has too much on its plate now. I think our members can't handle one more thing. And if anything, they would ask that while we're trying to solve the staffing problem, which is going to take, to say it's solved, it's going to take 2 or 3 or 4 years to get people in who stay long enough to sustain the staffing levels and gain the experience they need. So we don't think adding anything more to the existing infrastructure is a good idea. We also think that, and I think the chair said this, and I noted it when you said it, Madam Chair, it may be too much for the commissioner to handle, Commissioner of Corrections to handle, because from our members' view, other than the daily operation of the department, every waking hour and spare moment he has should be dedicated to solving the staffing crisis. It affects everything. If you want, and I know Vermonters want, and I know as representatives of those Vermonters, you want, like I do and VSEA does, rehabilitative services to be provided to correctional officers. I mean, to the folks who are incarcerated. When they're in lockdown, they're in their cell, there's no education, there's no recreation, there's no programming, there's no nothing. It's just warehousing. And that's driven by the staffing crisis. So everything, the staffing crisis, I sound like a broken record. I've been talking about this for 10 years. We want to solve it. I think management hopefully wants to solve it. It permeates every aspect of the correction system and enters into this discussion about a forensic unit. And we look at this in two ways too. I mean, we're looking at the correction system, but we're also looking at the state hospital. We, you know, as I said earlier, we do need a forensic unit. There are patients at the hospital who need to be there and who, no fault of their own, because of the medical condition they're in, become violent. Not too long ago, a nurse up at the hospital was assaulted so severely that she spent months in the ICU. So it's like a tinderbox. Both places are in precarious positions. So we would support a forensic facility that's separated from the correctional facilities. Obviously, because of Medicaid has to be separated from that facility up there. I think we're agnostic except for as to who runs it, except for the fact that we think that the Commissioner of Corrections has enough on his plate and needs to be looking at staffing every single day, every waking hour, every moment he has in order to stabilize this. The other thing is, I mean, you've all been in the buildings. They're in rough shape. I mean, even the newest one in Springfield, like, needs some work. I don't know where they're going to put this facility. You know, you have to have one in the women's facility, and which, as you heard from the commissioner, they got people piled up in the gym. They're moving them to another. They're talking about moving them to another facility because that one's too small. And the idea of the new women's facility is probably 7 to 8 years out if we're lucky. So reality sort of strikes, like, where are you going to put this? And if there are modifications and improvements to the facility to accommodate this, shouldn't everything else that needs to be done in those facilities be done first? The major maintenance that's been avoided at the women's facility, the bathroom toilets that don't work, the electrical systems that don't function, like, all that's piling up in this powder keg of an environment that we find ourselves in. So we wonder about that. And of course, there's no love lost between the members of the VSEA and WellPath. If you Google WellPath, and I just happened to on my way down while Vince was making me late for this meeting, that's why we paid Vince, like, throw shots his way. I did a quick Google search. WellPath, a major private prison healthcare provider, has faced numerous contract terminations and lawsuits due to allegations of neglect and inmate death. El Paso County terminated its contract following a settlement, and the company is navigating bankruptcy and hundreds of lawsuits. I mean, you just look at Colorado, Vermont, following numerous inmate deaths, reported that the Vermont Department of Corrections pulled security clearance for a top WellPath contractor. Washington State, our neighbors in Boston, in Massachusetts, just fired them because of a poor performance. Why in God's name did we hire these people to do anything? We're upset that they're providing health care when they do to the folks who are incarcerated in the correction facilities. Our position is that the Dean administration made a mistake when they privatized the healthcare services provided to the incarcerated. And you know who agrees with us on that? The Defender General. The Defender General and VSEA almost never agree on anything. So when we agree on this, that the profit motive is causing a major issue, it creates it. Why would we expand that to a company that's bankrupt, has tons of lawsuits, is being fired left and right? I think that it's a legitimate question as to whether that makes sense. I think our view is, let's do it. We got to do this. We got to build a forensic facility. Let's take our time. Let's think it through. Let's have everybody at the table. Let's not just, I think, react to the latest headlines and try to get something done quickly. Let's think it through. Bring everybody together that will be impacted by it and do it the right way. So I think I'll leave it at that, but I will say that my hope for this committee, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, just on the staffing issue. I feel a little schizophrenic between the two, but they're so related. We need help keeping the light shining on this issue. We need the commissioner, who I like very much, and we have a great working relationship with him. And I think we're waiting for some big decisions from him, and we hope they'll go in the way we've advised him, but we'll see. We need the light on this issue, constantly focused on this issue of understaffing and the unsafe staffing of our correctional facilities, both for the incarcerated and those who care deeply about them, and for the men and women who are risking their lives to keep us safe. And we'd ask the committee, the oversight committee here in the House and in the Senate, Corrections and Government Operations, to help us shine that light. So at the beginning of the session, we asked that you hold weekly hearings on this issue. We sent a long list of data points that we asked you to ask for. We hope that you will consider doing that either this year or next year, and that you'll request that data, because we put a lot of time. I mean, I am here delivering the message, but Tom Abdelnour, who's joined us, and Adam, and a whole team of our members put a lot of time into thinking about what questions should be asked, what information should be asked, should be sought, in order to get a real picture of what's happening. And so that's where that memo, and we can provide it again to the committee, came from. Those are the questions. How many lockdowns? How many times have you denied education? How many times, all of those things give you a much bigger, clearer picture than just, well, the rate was 18% and it was 30% and now it's 15. Okay, that's true, but it's not answering the question you're asking. Which is why do we have this massive amount of overtime that is killing our members and killing their families? And I hope we can get to the point where both sides can provide the data and agree with the data. And I had a long discussion with the commissioner about this, and I said, look, we have joint fiscal, and we have NCSL, and we have independent entities that can get this information that we believe would provide credible data to this committee while you make decisions. Instinctive in-state government, and I'm sure Representative Casey remembers this from his days, management never wants, at the lowest level, anybody above them to know anything's wrong. It's just the culture of government. Democrat, Republican, whatever. They will constantly say everything's fine, nothing to look at here. And I have to say, this administration has been very helpful. Sarah Clark, who we've known for 100 years and we all love, the Deputy Secretary of AHS has done a fantastic job of meeting with us and meeting with our members so that we can say, we want to tell you what we think is happening because we think you're getting a watered down view of what's happening. And the same is true in this building. So I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I hope that's helpful in your discussion, and I'm happy to take any questions or advice that you might have.
Steve, not that money isn't part of it, but for staffing, it's gotta be more than money. What's your views? What's keeping us from getting more staff? The more holistic view, if you would.
It's incredibly dangerous work, incredibly difficult work. The increase in violence in our society is and it has an impact on that. The mental health, the growth of mental health challenges, and all of those challenges mixed in. And I want to. We're still kind of in Commissioner Murad's honeymoon phase, but I would say an unresponsive management system in central office. You've heard me use the term. I'll use the polite term that our members. They're a little bit more graphic, but screw up, move up, constantly happening. It demoralizes people and they quit. But I would say that the biggest thing in the crisis that we're in, and I've racked my brains on this issue for 13 years, spent hundreds of hours in correctional facilities and P&P offices talking to people. To stabilize it, we need to make a massive investment in wages and benefits. It has to be one of the best paid jobs in the state. To get people in who will stay long enough so that the hiring can have an effect. We can't do it on the cheap. It's whether we're building a forensic facility, trying to staff the facilities, or building a new facility, we can't do it on the cheap. This is extremely costly. It's very expensive, but it's a priority of the people. So I would say all of those things need to be addressed that I said previously, but the first point that I think our members will tell us is we have to stabilize this situation, and a massive amount of increases in pay and benefits would be useful. I'm not asking the legislature to get involved in that at all, because that would be an unfair labor practice. And Mr. Berard will be over here yelling at me, Dr. Howard has committed an unfair labor practice. And he would be right if I was asking you to do something. I'm not asking you to do anything there except to shine a light on it so that the administration can say, okay, on to the next issue. This issue has to be addressed. And that's why I'm a broken record about it. We have to address this, and then we can get on to building the system that we all want that has better outcomes in terms of incarceration and recidivism and all that stuff.
And I think the pay is a huge part. I wouldn't do it for $20 an hour. There's a lot you could do easier than that. I wonder, and Steve, I've been thinking about it. How much do you think the revolving door of commissioners sort of contributes to this? I've been talking to a lot of frontline staff I used to represent. And I was asking one the other day, how do you like the new guy? He seems pretty good. He's going to be gone probably by September or something, but he seems pretty good. I like the other guy too, the mission statement guy. But nobody's going to follow a mission statement if they know you're going to be out the door in another year.
Yeah.
How do you get this consistent culture when the average length of stay for a commissioner is under 2 years? I think it was back in the Gorchak days that
was forever.
probably had some stability, but since then it's you can count so many commissioners. And how do you keep that chain where it's a culture people want to keep working in?
I think Polito, Bernard,
Hoffman.
probably on my 6th or 7th commissioner. Yeah. But I will tell you, we're hopeful. Our members are hopeful. Now, the proof will be in the pudding. And we don't know who above hovers in on decisions. Our members are hopeful that Commissioner Murad's experience in law enforcement gives him a better understanding of what the work our members are doing is like in the population that they're working with. They are grateful that he has managerial experience. This is not the place where you should have your first managerial job. This is a tough department to run. Probably DCF is next as difficult or comparable to this. But this is a tough department to run, and this shouldn't be your first management job. So we're hopeful that this will be successful. The other thing I said to him, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school. He was commissioner of, or he was the chief of police for a long time, a police officer for a long time. built a reputation, and some people have different views of that, but he definitely built a following. One that I would assume that the governor also shares, and a lot of the folks who support Commissioner Muir supported him when he was chief, probably are supporters of the governor. And one of the things that I've said to this commissioner, I tried it with every commissioner, but he's got it. He's got it in the way that Jim Baker had. He can push everybody out of his way. Excuse me, political advisors, excuse me, everybody. I can find a job anywhere. I'm going to go tell the governor the truth.
So Jim did.
He sure did. And, we had a good relationship. That's why we're hopeful. We had a good relationship during COVID. Commissioner Baker would call and we would work through the problems that were unique to COVID. We worked out an incredibly successful side letter that had double time in it. So that non-uniform staff and P&P staff and temporary staff were all incentivized to come in to cover overtime. It worked tremendously. And it was ended 3 months into Commissioner Murad's predecessor. And I don't know if that was the commissioner who said to do it or somebody above him. It's expensive, but it worked. And if you go around the facilities now, they will tell you double time worked. Double time worked. And that's the first thing I said to Commissioner Murad the first day I met him. Double time worked. He tell you, stop saying it. Because I say it so much. But it's really true. It's very expensive. Not asking you to pass a bill to implement double time. That would be an unfair labor practice. I'm not trying to commit an unfair labor practice. So I would say so far, still good with Commissioner Murad. There's some big issues out there that he has on his plate that he's been working with us on, and we're waiting for decisions from him. That will tell our members whether he is going to be successful in this administration or whether he has I think he's got it, at least from what I can see, the ability to say to the entrenched management in central office, I make the decisions here. And you may think you're going to survive me and go to the next commissioner, but I make the decisions here. And we're hopeful that that's the kind of chutzpah that he has.
All right, and Joe?
Don't think of an elephant. Now I'm thinking about double. Next word.
It worked. Totally worked.
We had the superintendent of CRC up in here last week, I think. And she said something that has stuck with me since. And it kind of springboards off of Connor's culture conversation. And we were talking about recruitment and retention of COs. And I'm going to paraphrase, and this is me applying my understanding of what she said. So it may not represent specifically what she said. But she indicated that people don't want to come to that job just to warehouse people, to use your language from before. They would come to a job where it feels rehabilitative and we're providing care for the people who need to be secure in a secure environment. And I've been thinking about that since she said it. I was probably thinking about it ahead of time, but not in those words. And I think she's right that the more we can create the environment within our correctional facilities to be one that is truly rehabilitative, truly caring, truly treats people with dignity and humanity, that's a different kind of job than just showing up and locking people down. And I'm wondering if you have any context from the people you represent. Like, is there anything out there from the folks who are doing the job right now in and around what it's like to do their job and what they wish it was like to do their job?
Yeah, so work-life balance is the number one thing. They want to be able to be at their kid's birthday party, soccer game. They need that. And the trauma, one of the reasons why their life expectancy is only 59, I spent a lot of time looking into what the science is behind that. It has to do with the adrenaline that pumps when you walk into an environment like a correctional facility. And it takes 2 hours after you leave that environment for it to calm down. So if you're there 16 hours and then it takes 2 hours, that day after day, year after year has an impact on your physical health. So that work-life balance is the number one thing. That's why people were excited about the promise of 223, that with promised work-life balance. It did work. It has worked at St. Johnsbury. It hasn't worked anywhere else. And so it could work, but in order to implement it, you have to give it time. You have to, it's almost the same thing, the same argument I'm making on the forensic facility. You have to give it time to get to the bare staffing minimums and not do this fake thing where you have people on the schedule who aren't available to work. Because what happens is you hired people with the 223 schedule promise on TV ads and in recruiting meetings. And you got there and the people weren't available to work, but they're on the schedule. So guess what? You got called in for a 16, even though you were told you were going to have this work-life balance. And then they quit. So $10,000 out the door. That's the first thing. We got to do that. The academy, I've been to the academy several times. Very nice people. I go to it. They give us an hour. We talk to them about what the union's all about. Who we are. It's in an environment that is not. It's in an industrial park. I've tried to convince the chancellor of the state colleges and the commissioner to think about Castleton or Linden, where they have criminal justice programs, so we can build. We have professionals who are working in the correctional system now, but who need career additional information, additional training, career advancement, but they also need to be given the sense from the beginning that this is a professional environment, that it is on a college campus or somewhere other than an industrial park. So let's start with that. I do think you're right. I think many people are attracted to there is a little bit of a schizophrenic situation where you have a job description that says you're there to keep the building secure. That's your job. Many people come from security backgrounds, particularly the military. That's what they were told they were being hired to do. And then they're also being asked to do all this other stuff that wasn't originally contemplated in the job description that they thought they were fulfilling. So we have to sort of straighten that out at some point and be very clear about who's providing, is it just security or is it security and do we need more additional staff that does that other stuff? We have to think about that because it's a little confusing right now, I think, for everybody. They're trying to do too much at the moment. I think we're trying to do too much, too fast, given the, not that the stuff is bad. The MAT program is a good concept, but I thought Commissioner Menard had it right when I never said that in my entire life until this moment. You probably remember Commissioner Menard, and maybe you do. I don't know if anybody else does. But she had the program, 6 months before your release date. And that limited the scope of the program to a very small population that with the resources that we have could be managed. And that got expanded to a much larger audience. And it is really difficult because there's not enough staff to actually run that program the way it was intended to be. It's not that it's a bad program, but we have to be realistic about what we can pull off with what we have. So I think that's the other part of it. A career ladder would also be helpful. So people know that you can start in a correctional facility and move up, whether that's throughout the correction system or into the state police, or, if there was a partnership with the Department of Public Safety. And I'll say for the record, I know this won't land with a lot of popularity in the State House, but our members overwhelmingly believe corrections should be in the Department of Public Safety. They feel like the lost stepchild of the Agency of Human Services. They've almost never seen the Secretary of Human Services. I've never spoken to her about corrections for over 13 years or how many years she's been there. Not to say that I can understand why that's true, because she's got this massive agency she's trying to run. This is such a huge problem that it needs more attention. So professionalizing and creating a professional, a career ladder, creating an environment that sends the message that this is a profession, a well-respected profession, building partnerships with the state police and with other law enforcement agencies. If people want to be a trooper, they didn't make it the first time, they worked in a correctional facility, maybe they get extra points or something. Like a lot of that stuff could be explored, but right now we're in an emergency situation and we got to get off the treadmill. Is what we really got to do.
Joe and then Kevin?
It's not really questions, it's the comment. So there are also macro labor force issues that are a challenge. Right? State's labor force in general is stagnant at best, if not shrinking. And if you look at where our facilities are located, that's much more pronounced in some areas. So for example, there's a plastic pellet plant, Kate, that just closed at Ripford because there's nobody there to work. That's why it closed. And I suspect that the issues tend to be at the same facilities over, or tend to be more pronounced there. And at some point in time, there'd have to be a reckoning with some of the places. Like, this is not going to be fixed. Because there's nobody there there's just nobody there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what our members will tell you is like, if you want to live in the Northeast Kingdom, you have to want to live in the Northeast Kingdom. And you have to be into like winter and outdoor sports and all the stuff that they really enjoy and celebrate up there. And if you're, so there's some of that stuff, but the basic, I mean, I had an economics course that was at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I almost never went. But I passed somehow. The basic economics of that is if you have a profession that is highly skilled and in demand, it pushes up the wages and the benefits. And we're not doing that to the extent that the market is responding. So in Northeast Kingdom, there's an employer, I can't remember the name, starting pay is $40 an hour. Corrections, it's 23 and change. Dealing with inmates, working 16 hours, I'm going to go to the $40 place, even if I don't have the health insurance that state employees have or the retirement, because right now that might not be the top of mind, especially with inflation, the cost of gas and all that stuff. It might be, how do I pay my bills? And I can't feed my family with a pension at the moment. So I think basic economics has to come into play. I will say that Commissioner Touchette, I think, was probably the first person I talked to about this, and not asking the legislature to do this. Don't want to get a ULP. If the correction system provided childcare, 24-hour childcare, wouldn't be that hard to organize, I don't think. I think people would be quitting their private sector jobs to come work for the Department of Corrections because you can't find childcare. You can't afford it. It's like a mortgage payment. I think the state ought to seriously consider that for all of its employees, but in particular for these places like the psychiatric care hospital, where it's really hard to find nurses, the vet's home, really hard to find nurses, and corrections where it's hard to find correctional officers. Childcare, I think, would create a waiting list. And back in the day, and this I keep referring to Representative Connor's history, but when Dave Bellini was the chair of the corrections unit, everybody remains Dave Bellini. He's our patron saint here. When I started, he came up to me my first day at Connor's phone number, called me. He said, I don't know you. I hear you're a liberal. Was not what he wanted to hear, not as liberal as he thought. But there's a waiting list of temps trying to be correctional officers, and they're making them wait as temps, and they should be hired and they should be given their probationary period and they should start. But we have this long waiting list of people who want to work in corrections. So that was in 2012. That waiting list about 5 or 6 years ago disappeared, evaporated, and went away. So it's possible. We know it's possible. But I think some of these I don't know how else to say it. It's going to cost a lot of money. And that's not popular to say in the governor's office, in the state legislature, even on the street. But it's the forgotten stepchild of the public safety system. Corrections is one of the most key components. You can put all the state troopers you want on Church Street. We support that. I support that. I think it's great. I'm a big supporter of the state police. We represent the lieutenants. It's not enough if you don't have a fully staffed correctional system of expert correctional officers who have the years of experience. Because the other thing they'll tell you, even though I want you to move the training facility to a college campus, they'll say that's all fine and good, but unless you spend a couple of years as a correctional officer, you don't know how to be a correctional officer. And unless you have somebody with years of experience kind of mentoring you and teaching you, and those people are retiring and leaving in droves, you don't learn how to be a correctional officer. So we got it. That's why the stabilization piece is so important, is to get that kind of experience in how do you de-escalate? How do you handle a fight and break up a fight, minimizing the violence? So, that's what I would do.
I decided not to ask. Thank you.
So you kind of jogged my memory, Stephen. I was lobbying you 20 years ago in the forensic facility. And, we just pulled out the chair referenced the 2018 report from the administration. We're on our third report from the administration on what this forensic facility will look like.
Administration.
Yeah, well, this one would be the same, yeah. But, this is almost what I was thinking back then. A 50-bed facility that would encompass individuals awaiting a psychiatric evaluation as part of a trial, individuals who have been found incompetent to stand trial, individuals who are tried and found guilty by reason of insanity, and individuals serving a sentence in prison who develop the need for outpatient or inpatient psychiatric care. That's like kind of the SFI population we talk about, which I think is about 50 now, Haley said. So I just wonder, and I know citing it is impossible, finding the money is impossible. But if you had a 50-bed facility where you could take these high need inmates and put them under specialized care, I just feel like it would relieve such a burden on some of the frontline staff who would be the first to admit they're not qualified to handle the acute mental health needs of people. I was in A unit, again, 20 years ago. I think it was Darrell Graham. You probably remember, Chair. He was a CO down there in Springfield. It was, people were screaming and people were screaming. And I asked Darrell, okay, what training do you have to take care of this population? And he said, I'm the gentlest. I would have them color a picture. I bring in coloring paper and stuff and have them color a picture to try to calm them down. I just thought people aren't being well served on that. And it's a horrible responsibility to put on our frontline staff. So if you had a facility that could sort of put the high needs in one place, it just feels like it would help the system all around, it's.
Absolutely. In that, I'm picturing another CO who's currently working as a CO, who said she's not going to bid on that post in the mental health unit again. And the reason is it's too hard to be there and to try to take on that, to hear all of that all day long, and the stress that is the stress that she felt was too overwhelming for her, because she said, a lot of these folks shouldn't be here. And I don't, other than keeping them from escaping, I can't do very much for them. And so I can't, you hear somebody who's obviously in duress and there's not much you can do except make sure they don't escape or hurt themselves or, all that stuff. But we absolutely need the forensic facility. We should take our time. We should not have it in a correctional facility. We should be thinking about the hospitals and the condition of the hospitals that are in the area. I mean, putting it in Springfield, that hospital's in tough shape there. Dartmouth, the problem with that is we don't have enough correctional officers to do hospital coverage. They used to do all the hospital coverage. It used to be something that they liked to do, other than it's got you out of the facility. They can't do it, so it gets pushed onto PMP. The two smallest offices in the system are Brattleboro and Springfield. And the pressure on those people, Chittenden has a much bigger office. The pressure on those 12 people in Brattleboro and in Springfield to cover the hospital in their area was immense. And it caused people to want to leave. PMP, most people want to work. I'm also concerned, I don't know how this is going to work. I mean, maybe it would work. I don't know. I was thinking about it. Was reading through the bill. I don't know if it's envisioned that probation officers are going to supervise folks that are in the community. And I wonder about their ability to do that. The issue with it's kind of it's a chicken and the egg with the career ladder. there could be a tendency to want to hire people off the street for P&P positions and for what's called a COST, COST. And that is a huge problem for our members who have done their time, literally, no pun intended, in the correctional facility, who want to move up in their career to the P&P office, and who feel like they applied for the job and they hired somebody with no corrections experience off the street. And then that also creates a problem when you call the P&P officers in to come help at the facility, because those folks have to go to the academy, but they've never worked in a correctional facility. And it's very different. It's very different. It's the same population, but it's very different environment. So I'm wondering how that's going to work. And I think we should think this stuff through. And I know there's a demand from the public to do something. I 100%, I was a victim advocate for a number of years in Chittenden County. I worked with all the survivors of crime. I know what their families are feeling. I know and I'm 100% supportive of them. I'm on their side, but we do them a disservice if we don't do this right. So I would urge you to slow it down, think it through. Don't take any quick, fast actions now.
See, that kind of leads into my question. I mean, we've kind of got a blank slate right now. Really think about it, because we don't have any program for competency restoration. There's a real gap in our system for that. We don't have the appropriate placements. We don't even have the appropriate supervision or support systems in place. So what would you propose? How would we go about doing it right? Where would a forensic facility be housed? Who would staff it? Who would provide the security? How would you do it right?
Okay.
This is what we're grappling.
I think, and I'm not trying to, I'd say a couple of things. There's a lot of space in St. Albans at that facility in St. Albans, right? And on the grounds, right? So I think it could be on the grounds of a correctional facility, but a separate building. From Senator May's negotiations with the state, that the state left a big chunk of change in the town of Springfield, as they should have, because of his negotiation skills, but also because of the added responsibility that Springfield was going to take when they built the last facility that we built. I would say a couple of things, and this is, I think about this related to citing a new facility for the high-end system of care in DCF, which we spent a lot of time thinking about. It's going to take, wherever it goes, and I don't mean this to be controversial or partisan in any way, it's going to take the leadership of the governor, whoever he or she is, to go to that community and make the case directly to the people, to organize the opinion leaders in that community and find out what will work and what won't work and what they need and what they don't need, but also understand it's going to cost you some money. They're going to want a new rec center, a new pool. They're going to want new pipes. They're going to want all this stuff. And you have to be willing to do it. I thought that would have worked in St. Albans with the high-end system care. I thought that would have worked in Virgins. And I felt badly for the commissioners who had to go up there and face the wrath, but no one knows who those commissioners are. They know who the governor is, whether it's whoever the governor is. And I think there needs to, I have an organizing background. There needs to be some community organizing and some conversations that occur before you have the public hearing. And so that you can build a proposal that the community can accept. I think
the facility operator, who would be, I agree with what you're saying. You gotta get buy-in from.
Yeah.
But some of us have been through that.
Yeah.
Citing facilities, but how would the facility operate? Who would be, under whose jurisdiction would it be? Who would provide the programming, the supports to the folks who are in there?
Mhm.
And who would provide the security?
I think you have to have a mix of, obviously you have to have medical staff and medical professionals. I think you need social work staff. That's one set. Our social workers that we represent in DCF will tell you they would like law enforcement to go with them at every chance they can get. Because they will say, I'm not a law enforcement officer and I'm about to do enforcement of the law. And it's going to get testy here in the middle of nowhere. So I would say you need also a correctional officer like person who's maybe specially trained to be present in case things get violent. I don't know whether the tricky part is it the commissioner of mental health, the commissioner of public safety, or the commissioner of corrections that's in charge of it? That gets to be complicated, and maybe it can be done with an MOU, like there is an MOU, where the security of the building is up to corrections or public safety, and the medical, nursing, rehabilitative piece is up to the Department of Mental Health. And maybe Dale, because obviously there's some co-occurring issues there as well. And I thought maybe you had this suggestion, Madam Chair, in a hearing I was watching where, maybe it's the Secretary of Human Services or the Secretary of Administration who actually oversees it all.
The issue that's percolated up from that is folks have to be under some department's custody. And the Agency of Human Services doesn't operate that. They have folks under their custody. It's under the custody of Dale. It's under the custody of DMH.
Yeah.
You see, some of the folks in the forensic facility, it's not all mental health issues. You could have folks with TBI.
Yeah.
You could have folks with dementia.
Yeah.
It's not all mental health.
Yeah. No, that's right.
So under whose custody, is it a dual role? I mean, that's what we're grappling with.
I think you could, maybe you could even simplify it by just saying that this, we have a proposal on this that may be on your wall. I think you take the issue of security and separate it from the issue of human services. And whether it's BGS that provides it or the Department of Public Safety or corrections, you need a security force present in the building. So it's not nurses trying to protect themselves. It's somebody who knows who can do that. And then you have also the medical component. So maybe there's a way to say this is under this is like any state agency under our proposal. So I'll just tout while I have a chance. The function of the facility is mental health or Dale, but the security is corrections or public safety or BGS. We have proposed a new classification in addition to the corrections of the BGS security force that we have now that would require a law enforcement certification. We've actually proposed the creation of a state buildings and courthouse police force, which would be an expansion of the Capitol Police, basically. So like this building is a good example that, maybe this is the model. Sergeant at Arms is in charge of the building. There's a police chief and there's security. There's somebody they report to, but really the security is up to this police chief and the police, so maybe this is a model and maybe our bill, it's up there. I think it's up there. He wrote it. So that may be a model we think for this facility and for all state buildings. Because it's not getting easier out there, as you all know from the threats you all get. It's not getting easier for public employees, from the front desk clerks to the social workers. It's just not. It's not getting easier for them either, from a safety perspective. You're welcome.
Steve?
Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. The forensic thing, I think we all know something needs to be done. Question is, how can we do it effectively? Can we ensure people's constitutional rights?
Absolutely. Yeah.
State takes away people's liberty.
Yeah.
That is very serious.
Right. Take your time. I'll just leave on that. Take your time. Do it right. I think every Vermonter who is clamoring for, do something about the crime situation would understand an argument that we want to take our time and do it right. and not rush through something that maybe we haven't thought through all the way through. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thank you.
Vince, you did a great job.
That's.
When Steve first started here, he was so young, and a page, a senator once handed him a note. And he thought it was for him because she thought it was for a page.
I happen to have a green suit on.
So he opens it, starts reading, he says, "How dare you?" And she takes it.
She leaped across the Cedar Creek room to grab the note out of my hand.
You're right.
You're not supposed to read the notes. I said, but you handed it to me. You know, I didn't know I'd never met this person. She's like, you just aren't supposed to read the notes. I'm not a page.
That's funny. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, who was younger? You were 27, Vince, weren't you?
I'd already come and gone by the time I got this.
How old were you when you came in, Vince?
27, my birthday's in September, so by the time I hit the building, I was 27. Yeah,
Then I turned 28.
yeah, so did I.
I stopped at 39.
Vince is like, that's how it works, right?
Thank you all.
See you guys.
Um,
Yes, what is Vince's responsibility position? I don't know.
He's a lobbyist.
he's a lobbyist, yes.
He was a senator for a while. Senator, I think he was rep first.
No,
Coming in the
because I was
Senate, yeah, he
senator.
came in the Senate.
And he was chair of institutions committee.
Yeah, were you state's attorney first?
When I was vice chair,
Right.
then he went to the still states.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then he
Yeah.
was chair of economic development.
Thank you. Well, that was uplifting.
Huh? I learned a lot from that.
That was uplifting.
We're, you know, you gotta do it right. That's,
Yes.
this is a really difficult issue. This is a real difficult issue. And the bill's gonna land in our lap next week, probably Tuesday. What I'd like to do is make sure that folks over the weekend have the latest draft from Judiciary Committee. So Tate, if you can check with Nate and find out whatever their latest draft is, if we could at least send that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Before we, you know, I feel in a way we're kind of in a holding pattern now until we know what draft they're working in, and then Katie can assimilate. And we're gonna have to get folks back in here to testify next week. You know, we'll have to get Karen Barber. State's attorneys.
She'll be back from vacation. He's back from vacation.
She is back, yeah, Karen Barber. Oh, would we need the state's attorneys? We need, I'd like to get the Secretary of Agency of Human Services. But we're gonna have to take some testimony from folks.
Yeah.
Trying to think who else we should have. DOC, I don't know, we have to have DOC, I think, but I don't know, we're taking them out of the picture.
I mean, one could argue we already know their opinion, they testify too, but it doesn't mean we don't have other questions.
But we're taking them totally out.
Yeah.
So it'd be more the Secretary of Agency. of
Yeah.
Human Services.
Concur.
Brian and Johnson.
Yeah.
I sent, I think, both of you a contact that my intern found, UC Irvine.
He's one.
From UC Irvine, a
Yeah.
contact who has expertise on the perils of placing a forensic facility within a correctional institution. So I sent you an email with, I don't know if that would be helpful or not. Maybe I texted you, I don't remember. I can find it, but, yeah. But there is a, and I think there is a Vermont constitutional lawyer who has some thoughts on the matter too, but Senator Bielanski has contact info for.
There's Professor Susan McMahon,
Where,
UC Irvine.
that's her, yeah. So look at my intern's notes and see if that's something you might do.
Yeah, just bigger picture.
you know, this all goes through. Is the administration just gonna push back and say it's going to the DOC, whether they like it or not?
Could they just do it?
Could they just like, even though we do all this work? I'm just curious. Because I don't understand the process.
Well, I think what you'll see, right, if you don't mind me speculating, it's a feasibility report. They'll come back and say it's not feasible. And here's another way you could do it.
Feasibility plan, Were you saying regardless of that, just going in?
Yeah.
I think it would be, I mean, folks are incarcerated now. I think that. I mean, how could they call it a forensic facility when there's no definition of it in statute? How can they say they're operating it if they can't go through rulemaking without legislative authority to let them go through rulemaking? They have to carry out, rules have to carry out the intent of law. There is no law. I don't know. I mean, by default, it's all folks are sitting there in corrections. by
Right, they're there
default.
anyway.
On the other
By
answer,
default, but there's no services. There's no structure of services.
No,
There's no structure of what program to restore competency if a person can be restored. There's no program, there's nothing there for that. The issue is if someone is there who's not competent to stand trial and they've been charged with violent felony. There's no services being provided to them, possibly to restore competence. And they can't go to trial until they know what they're up against.
I have a difficult time following the logic that they can be put in general population as far as like the competency has been judged to a point where they can be general population. There's the competency line, you know, that's,
what exists?
yeah, exactly.
What I heard was, it may be best to allow them to be.
Oh, of course, no, I
So the
understand for the
medical
social,
necessity is what's assessing whether they are in general population or not. If you go right back to the beginning, this is a Band-Aid to get past this gap and the lack of services in a financially feasible way. Otherwise, we're still not doing anything better than what we are currently doing.
Be working to start doing something better.
Right.
And it doesn't happen over,
no.
you gotta take that first step.
I'm not saying not to. I hope we can be successful, but I'm just wondering how the administration's gonna. Seems to me that they're.
Yeah, if I could just go back to the point I made yesterday, it's a feel-good bill if the dangerousness is based on the sentencing as opposed to a clinical diagnosis of what their chances of committing a crime out there. Because every year, I think it's between like 40 and 80 people are incompetent to stand trial. You're dealing with 5. I bet those 5 aren't even the top 5 most dangerous, you know, out of that. So somebody who's committed multiple aggravated assaults, yeah, they're the one who's going to get a murder, you know?
right.
And we're
It's a
just,
health issue.
it's a health issue, yeah.
It's
But-
not
but
law enforcement.
There's also us naive people that say, we're looking at the hardest cases, what to do with them. We're overloaded, we don't have the finances. And I still go back to, okay, let's look at the easiest situation. Put them in another facility so that we can free up the facilities, those who are getting out in 90 days. Take them out of those prisons and put them in a place that's a halfway house, free up the space there, and then get the intense extra service for the 5 or 6 people we're talking about for this bill. In other words, relieve the pressure in our current facilities by setting up the low risk.
You're talking like the reentry facility,
Yeah.
yeah, for the women. Yeah,
Take the pressure off so that we can.
Gotta find a building to do that.
yeah, that's
That's what we've been
It's been a
trying to do
problem.
with the women.
Right, one that says
We can't even
that,
do it for the women. We haven't even started thinking about the men.
which really highlights back to the whole issue, like it sounds like an easier idea, but it isn't. Neither one of them's easy. Because it all comes back to the fact we don't have staff, we don't have money for a new facility, we don't have
And we don't have a community that's willing to house.
Yeah, so none of them are easy. Is the point. I think everybody here knows that, is that.
None of it's easy, but that would be an easier path to walk, is to refurbish something we currently have that the community already knows is in place. You're gonna staff it one way or the other, whether they're here or there. And take the approach of getting some relief on the less risky end so that you can apply more services in the high risk end.
We're grappling with what we can do. Doing the best we can. Just, you know, a lot of this is really dealing with policy issue in terms of how do we work as a state, how people restore confidence. We're just looking at it through the angle of where do you provide a secure facility? And because we deal with corrections, the proposal that came over from the Senate and from the administration is putting the folks that need competency restoration programming under the Department of Corrections. Subject to the Department of Corrections, but by default, that's where the administration proposed that the authority lies. So we're criminalizing people's health. That's what we're doing. So, leave it at that. Anything else before we break? There's nothing else going on that I can think of. We're gonna hopefully have the capital bill sometime next week. And when that passes the Senate, we'll have the chair of the institutions committee quickly walk us through the bill and the parole board. Keep an eye on the parole board. And that's coming up on the floor in the Senate because there's the amendment that came from the Victim Notification Task Force. We're notifying folks who are going through parole and going through the parole board. Senator Major is the reporter of that bill. Have him come in, see if we accept that amendment. Or if we amend it further, or we disagree with the Senate proposal amendment, go on to conference committee. We will be getting S-193 next Tuesday. Goal is for us to get it out by next Friday.
Turn that around.
Yeah, we're gonna turn that around pretty quick. So we'll be setting up some testimony next week. We do have a field trip scheduled Tuesday afternoon.
Yes,
What time? Right after the floor?
1:30.
Raceville Dam,
Yes.
right? And then we have the Waterbury Dam Thursday morning. And watch out for the weather. It's raining. We may have, depending what we need for 193, we may have to.
It was about that.
We may have to do something. Because we really gotta buckle down on 193. Calendar math. If we get out of here, can we go flip the,
My pleasure.
so people can see it? Calendar math, we're back here on the 4th. We get the bill out 193. On the 8th, we have 1 week to work on it. It's a goal, it is for the 15th, 16th, that's the goal. Get out the 15th or 16th is the goal. That's what they're working on.
Are they trying to get out of here?
My free picks on the 22nd, so.
Wow.
Yeah, I keep hearing the 22nd, so but you know more than we do, that's for sure.
I'm not banking on the 22nd. I'm going for the, what I'm hearing from leadership, it's the 15th, and I keep saying, well, maybe.
I want to pick on the 15th too.
But, you know, if you keep saying the 22nd or the 30th, expands, but people are really looking at the 15th. Appropriations bills already in conference.
Yep.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Alex.
The Yield bill will be in conference. The ed bill, what I'm hearing, is not gonna be too, where they are now, it's not gonna be too different than where the House is.
Really?
That stays on track.
And we're
That's
gonna
a
be
good-
here into June.
Yeah, exactly.
No, what I'm saying
It ain't
is,
gonna fly.
what I'm saying is the House, the education bill is very much on track with what the House did. If it goes off track, that will be something different. right now, it looks like not too different than what the House did. So, you know, thanks to
We're talking over each other, I think. It will be vetoed,
If it doesn't change.
and there will be no budget passed,
if it doesn't change and it's vetoed, we are out of session by the time.
but there will be no budget passed.
No,
So we then can't leave.
we'll leave and then maybe we'll have to come back. What I'm saying is we adjourn. And if we come back, it won't come back until June.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the adjournment of this legislative session. What they're shooting for. Is final adjournment by the 15th.
Good.
Where we finish the capital bill,
Take,
finishing yield bill, T-bill, capital bill, and any other bills out there that are important for folks, ed bill. Once those get wrapped up, we're done.
it'd be
If the
lovely.
governor vetoes, that's another discussion. Once these big bills are done, we adjourn, so we gotta work backwards. From the date that they're open for an adjournment, which is around the 15th of May. So we got next week. To get us 193 out. Capital bill will be in conference committee by the end of next week. So we'll be in conference that last week, tie it up. And hopefully the other bills for us, supervisory fee bill, they didn't change that, right?
Right.
That stayed the same.
It didn't look like they
What
changed. I didn't do a fine tooth comb, but it looks similar.
And they got two more of our bills over there. I don't know what else is going on in other committees. But you gotta start from May 15th and work backwards and count how many days. It's been up to. That's calendar now. We got a lot of work over the next 2 weeks. And we'll have a lot of dead time. So for those folks who aren't gonna be here tomorrow, have a good trip down to Washington, different reasons. Be prepared for Tuesday afternoon doing a full side trip up to Wrightsville Dam. Go from there. We're meeting tomorrow after the 4th. Yeah, and I don't have anything in the afternoon tomorrow, so it should be a pretty good day.